So this lesson today is going to be about helping you improve your graph skills, okay? You've either got a little worksheet you can work through or you can just do the lesson on lined paper, okay? So key rules when plotting a graph. This is something that we've been using since you were in year 7, or you might have even used it in primary school, so it's not something that is new, okay? Is every time you're plotting a graph, I want you to be thinking about making sure that your graph has got the salute on it. Okay, so when you're thinking about your scale, you need to be making sure that your scale is either going up in 1s, 2s, 5s, 10s, or multiples of them numbers, okay? I never want to see a graph going up in 3s or 4s. No, okay? It's got to be 1s, 2s, 5s, 10s, or multiples of them. So by multiples, I mean you can go up in 20s, you can go up in 50s, 100s, because they are multiples of them numbers, okay? Axes, remembering which way around your axes go, okay? X is across, Y to the sky. You always plot your independent variable on the x-axis and you always plot your dependent variable on the y-axis. The independent variable will always be the first one in a table. The dependent variable will always be the second one. Or if you've got multiples, you might be asked to calculate and plot the mean of them, okay? But it's all about not just being able to label x and y, but being able to talk about where you put in your variables. Labels then, making sure both axes are labelled with whatever is on the table, okay? So use the table to make sure you label your axes correctly. The same then with units. There has to be units and they have to be in brackets. That needs to be included on both axes. Equipment, and this is something you need to make sure that you've got now, is you need a ruler and a pencil, okay? If you've got a pen, put it down. You do not need a pen. And then title, using not a graph to show, using the information. So as x increases, y increases at a steady rate. And I'll go through that now on the next slide. But using that, not just saying a graph to show, because there's no relevance to that. You want to make sure that's often for 2 marks in the exam. So we want to make sure that we're doing it really well, okay? You need to become aware and be able to recite these kind of what a graph is showing and describing a graph, okay? I know the picture's a little bit funny, but it was the best I could find to make sure that you'd be able to do this. So you can see here it says, as x increases, y increases at a steady rate. That's a steady rate. Now, I know you use different words in maths, but for science, this is going to account for 2 marks whenever you get asked to describe a graph. So when you get asked to describe what the graph shows, you need to be using these, okay? We also use them as our titles instead of saying a graph to show, okay? So I suggest you maybe pause, take a minute to learn these. And obviously in the exam or whenever you're plotting a graph, you wouldn't say as x increases, you would say whatever is on the x-axis, okay? And you increasing rate, decreasing rate. You can kind of work out what's going on as you look at them. Especially as soon as you see a line one, you can say that's a steady rate one. But be careful of that. I know you use different words in maths, but for science, these are the words that we need to use. So, you are going to, if you've got the worksheet, you can just plot along with me. Or if you're plotting a graph, again, that is fine. You can just use the graph, okay? I'm going to work through 2 with you and show you some worked examples. And then there's some other ones for you to have a go at, and again you can look at, I put the answers up on the slides as well. So the first thing, looking at our success criteria, is you need to gather your equipment, okay? You obviously can't see my equipment, but we need a ruler and a pencil, okay? I do not want to see a pen, so if you've got a pen, put it away. Sharpen your pencil if you need to. Really important to use a nice pencil and a ruler. Okay, next thing that it says draw on your axes. So obviously you won't be able to see me do this, but it will appear on the screen, is to make sure that the edge of your graph paper, you've got clear axes, nice straight line drawn on, okay? And you do that for both of your axes, making sure it's nicely drawn on using your ruler, okay? And then it says label your x and your y. X is across, y to the sky, okay? Identify your independent and dependent variables. Like I said, your independent variable is always your first one. Your dependent variable is always the second one. Okay. Use these labels on your X and Y axes. X goes first, Y goes second. That's how you would always do it on a table. So I'm going to put temperature down here, leaving space to ensure that I can put my scale on. Again, leaving space, checking that you're including your units. Okay, at any point, if it's going a bit fast for you, make sure you pause it and just do that point before you move on. Ensure you have included any units next to your labels. Pick a scale for your axes. So I'm looking at this one down here. I'll start with this one. So I need to get to 40. What I want you to practice doing, unless it says you're always going to put your origin as 0, 0. Sometimes they'll tell you to not start at 0, but unless it says, make sure you put your origin as 0. And then what I would do is practice, okay? So just count in your head. Can you see how there's a dark line there where we're going to put our scales? So there's a darker line on your sheet. So this one's every 5 squares is a darker line. Sometimes it's every 10, but you can see that darker line. It's most probably worth just dashing them so you can definitely see them to make sure you're plotting your graph correctly, okay? I would then practice in your head. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. So that fits perfectly. And then I would write it in, okay? Don't write it in until you've definitely practiced what you need to do, okay? Okay, so I've done that side. Then I need to think about going up the other side. So I need to get to 500. So 50 is going to work. 50, 100, 200. Sorry, 50, 100, 150, 200, 250, 300, 350, 400, 450, 500. Okay, so again, it wouldn't have been beneficial to go up in 100s because you're not going to hit the top mark and it's not going to look good. Okay, remember you want to fill as much of the page as possible. Okay, so thinking about your scales and remembering that you can only go up in 1s, 2s, 5s or 10s or multiples of them numbers. So no 4s, no 3s, okay? Them numbers are really important, okay? So next thing we need to do now, which is the hardest bit of plotting a graph, is looking at your numbers and working out where your cross is going to go. So for the first one, we've got 5 and we've got 0. So I'm going to find 5 on the x-axis, find 0 on the y-axis, and I'm going to put a cross where it needs to be. Okay, and I'll tick that one off in my head. Next one then, 15. So find 15 on the x-axis, go up to 100 on the y-axis, and put a cross. 25, 250. Okay, 35, I'm just going to say it's 400, okay, because there's a bit of a mistake on your sheet. So we've got 35 is 400, and then 40 is 500, okay. Now, looking at that, we're not doing dot to dot. We're not doing dot to dot, okay. We're either doing a line or a curve for best fit. Again, with your pencil, before you draw anything on, check with your ruler. See, is that a line or is it a curve? And have a go, okay? I actually think looking at that, it's a slight curve. So I'm going to curve it down, okay? And then there's going to be one that is out, okay? So for me, that was a slight curve, okay? So write a relevant title at the top of the page. So I'm going to write as temp increases, growth rate increases at an increasing rate. Okay, remember you have to go back to that previous slide and look at them. Okay, so here's just kind of an example, a nice example. So if you wanted to pause the screen and just have a look at it, check that you've done it nice and neat. That's just an example of it to check your results, okay? So again, you can either pause the video and just have a go at this one, or I am going to work through this one again, and then there's 2 other ones for you to have a go at, okay? But it's just in your head, so you can watch me do another one if you want to. So gather the correct equipment, a ruler and a pencil, okay? Make sure it's a ruler and a pencil. Don't want to see any pen. Same thing again now. Draw on your axes nice and straight. That's not that straight. Make sure yours is nice and straight. Okay, making sure that you've used a ruler. Label your X and Y axes. X is across, Y to the sky, okay? Identify your variables, so it goes independent, dependent, okay? Use these as headings. If you notice, this is a series of graphs that have all got the same headings. It's just to do with what I was plotting and looking at line graphs, okay? So bacterial growth on this side, okay? This is really important. It's how you're going to pick up marks in an exam, okay? Okay, so use these headings to label your X and Y axes. Ensure you have included the units. Pick a scale, okay? So this time I need to get to 80. I know from the previous one, 5s isn't going to work, so I'm going to try 10s, okay? Practice it in your head before you actually do it, okay? It's really important that you check that it actually fits before you write it on, okay? This one then, we want to get all the way up to 50, so 5s should work. Again, check in your head if not sure. So count up using the little spacings, using the darker lines. If it doesn't fit, then you can go again and then try a different number. Remember, always pick in multiples of them numbers, okay? No other random numbers, okay? Next thing then, look at it. You need to find 10. And you need to find 50, okay, and draw across where they would actually meet, okay. Next one then 20, and then this time it's 43, okay, which is a little bit weird on this graph paper, okay. You need to use it to count up, okay. If you look, work out how many squares you've got. So if that was 0, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares. So each little square is going to be worth 1. Okay, but sometimes it won't be worth 1, it'll be worth 2, so that's really important that you work that out as well. So we've got 20, and then we're going to go 41, 42, 43. I'm going to put a big X there, but obviously if I've been using my pencil, I can rub out then anything that's got in the way, okay. Next one then, 50 and 20. 70 and 12, so that's going to be 1, 2 up from 10, and then 80 and 5, okay. Remember it says here there's a half error square, so you have to make sure your crosses are in exactly the right place. Again, is it a curve, is it a straight line? Practice, but don't actually draw it on with your ruler. I'm going to go with a straight line with one slightly out in terms of an anomaly, okay? Don't want to see any dot to dots. Then you need to write a relevant title at the top of the page. So this would be as X, so as temperature increases, the growth rate decreases at a steady rate. Okay, so it's so important you use them 6 diagrams at the beginning, and that would be worth 2 marks for you. Okay, no graph to show. Again, if you want to pause the screen and look at it, there's an example of it on the screen now. And then what you should be able to do now is practice a couple. Okay, so there's a couple to practice, and you can pause the video then on the next page and just check your answer. Okay, so I've drawn it out for you there. Check your axes, stuff like that. Check your titles, check your lines of best fit, things like that. But pause the screen and look at yours. So have a go and then pause the screen and look at it. The same with this one then. There's also the opportunity to check salute. So thinking back from the first slide, Salute. Have you got correct scales? Have you got your axes the right way around? Have you labelled your axes? Have you included units, a title, use the correct equipment? But what's really important is that you're pausing on these screens and checking, okay? This scale potentially could have gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's why we had to go up in 2s, because 1s didn't fit, okay? So on this bottom one, it's only just covering half a page, okay? But again, it's because you've got to make sure your scale goes in 1s, 2s, 5s and 10s. And there's that final graph there. So you should have plot at least 3 graphs now and check your results, okay? Pause in the screen to make sure that you can check your results, okay? If you did it on a worksheet, make sure you hand it in, or if you're just doing it at home on graph paper, again, if you've got any problems, just come see me or someone in science. Thank you.